I set goals, I set targets, and I wanted to achieve them. And I realized that all of these goals kept evolving as I evolved. So change is the only real reality. So if I'm prepared to adapt, adjust, and accommodate, that's the 3 A's that I live by: adapt, adjust, and accommodate. Then, every challenge that I meet, every hostility, compromise, everything that I have to deal with on the way, I get to deal with.
Most companies are talking about trying to be more sustainable and giving back to society. But when it comes down to walking the talk in their day-to-day business operations, well, oftentimes that train veers off the tracks. One company has been making this a core part of their business for over 2 decades, and it's a business with operations in more than 30 countries. Hi, I'm Jane Singer, and thank you for tuning in to A Seat at the Table. As ever, it's lovely to have you here as part of our global community that now spans 93 countries. It's wonderful that you're taking time out of your day to join us. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you're enjoying learning from the many truly outstanding people who are guests on the show, and that, like me, you always gain some new insights, understanding, and maybe even some inspiration. The company I'm talking about is Q1 Group, founded by legendary entrepreneur and philanthropist Vijay Eswaran. Vijay has been named by Forbes as one of Asia's top 50 philanthropists. He is also on the advisory board of the World Economic Forum's Global Growth Companies and a regular speaker at WEF's annual meeting in Davos. Q1's success is proof of concept that a business can be both successful and support sustainability and human values. In this episode of A Seat at the Table, Vijay talks about how sustainability and profitability can live together happily under the same roof. He also talks about the need for leadership with a new vision for the future, how his Rhythm Foundation is helping people to be their best selves, and the biggest thing he's learned building his company and his foundation. But before we get started, if you want an easy-to-read, straightforward view of key shifts and developments in Asian supply chains without reading through endless amounts of bloated text and overly complicated graphs, if you're tired of wasting time piecing together the overwhelming amount of information online and in other reports, and you just want someone to make it simple, then the current situation is exactly what you're looking for. These concise roundups of key news and information help international sourcing execs get only the news you really need, summarized so that you can reclaim your time and your inbox. For immediate access, go to thecurrentsituation.net. That's thecurrentsituation.net. I'll leave links in the show notes and, of course, also over on our podcast website. Now let's sit down with Vijay and find out how our businesses can contribute to a greener and more peaceful environment. I'm thrilled to have you on the program, Vijay. Our audience is so interested in learning more about sustainability from a practical point of view. And I think the fact that you've been able to bring this through in your company is something that people can learn from. I think that right now companies are trying to be more sustainable, but yet at the same time, they have to be profitable. They have to produce products that customers like. They have to be able to meet tight deadlines. There's so many moving parts. So I think that it's interesting for people to be able to learn from you because you've managed to do this very successfully. So perhaps you can share a little bit about what you've been doing and about how you've managed to make this work.
Well, sustainability for us is and always has been. One is from a corporate viewpoint. Corporate sustainability is a fundamental issue of mine, something that I basically keep talking about. So I basically refer to it as the difference between profitability per se, which is where you have shareholder responsibilities, and stakeholders. Now, the stakeholders in the corporate world are people who are in for the long run. A shareholder is, in a sense, a mercenary, and profitability is his only focus. Sustainability becomes fundamentally more important when you have stakeholder responsibilities. So stakeholder-driven companies is what we are all about.
It's an interesting point of differentiation that I hadn't thought about myself before.
So that's in terms of corporate sustainability. So stakeholders look at a company from a totally different viewpoint. It's not that profitability is not important, but profitability becomes one of the important criteria.
Right.
Sustainability becomes fundamentally more important. And which means that we need to give back to the community. We need to give back, towards society in general. The products and everything else has to be eco-friendly. People look at everything from carbon emissions to social responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this falls into the corporate area. Then, of course, you have the issue of the second or more, I think, fundamental issue, which is human values. So sustainability insofar as human values is concerned for us is a different gambit per se, where we are focused upon human-centric values. Like, for instance, we as a company have chosen to be vegan.
Right.
And we have done this for the last 23 years, long before it became fashionable or trendy. And the primary reason for that is we have our corporate icon as Mahatma Gandhi. Now, that's something that we specifically chose to do, to identify and find a corporate icon. And
Wow.
The reason for this is we wanted to be able to emulate and follow certain value systems that were, in our opinion, universal and respected worldwide and had made a difference to humanity in general. So using Mahatma Gandhi as our platform, as it were, as a go-to, we came up with the slogan, raise yourself, help mankind.
Wow, that's so
Rhythm.
impressive. Yeah.
RYTHM.
Oh, okay.
RYTHM. Raise yourself to help mankind.
Wow.
It's a slight play on the word rhythm.
Yeah, well,
Now,
it's good. I like it.
So, in essence, it drives forward very essential to one is it is critically important for us as a company to, first of all, raise ourselves.
Right.
We need to be, independent, strong, in order to be able to help anybody else, leave alone mankind. So this comes out of a little tale that we picked up from Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography when he was in South Africa. And many people don't know this, but Gandhi did not just fight for the emancipation and freedom of India, but he also did so even in South Africa. So Africa actually considers him, one of their native sons.
Wow.
And in fact, Nelson Mandela, in one of his first statements to the Indian Parliament, said, "You gave us Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, which is a raw, stripling young lad, and we gave you the Mahatma," which is the title. So they take responsibility for shaping Gandhi into the man that he eventually became.
Wow. Yeah.
So this little tale about some youths who had, basically left the university, left their campuses to come and offer their services to Gandhi in his fight for freedom. He had an ashram somewhere in the outskirts of Johannesburg. So they were there sweeping the courtyard, cleaning the latrines, doing menial labor. And he came across them in the morning. He says, "You seem to be new faces. Where do you come from?" And they said, "Well, I'm from the engineering faculty. I'm from the medical faculty," and, all of that. Then he says, "I have no dirt, no short supply of people who want to clean latrines and sweep the courtyard. But what I do have is an incredible demand for doctors, lawyers, engineers, and the like. So first of all, young man," he said to the man in front of him, "go back and raise yourself. Raise yourself till you have hit your highest potential, the highest possible potential. Then come back to me, because then together, you and I, we will raise mankind.
Wow.
We will help mankind." So that was a powerful statement that remained emblazoned in my head. And that's what became our slogan. And among the things that Gandhi is, of course, famous for is his nonviolence.
Right.
In which basically, is the word ahimsa, nonviolence. So veganism for us was about nonviolence. Ultimately, we have a saying in the States, what goes around comes around.
Yes.
And in a nutshell, that's really what it is. So violence begets violence.
So true.
And killing for us was a kind of violence that has been condoned and accepted by many for too long. And the fact that these living creatures that we share this planet with are all as much his children as we are, is something people tend to overlook, per se.
I think that's an important message, particularly these days. I think that,
I agree.
we're sort of coming out of an era where we've forgotten that. And perhaps maybe the pandemic has come along to make us stop and think. I don't know. But I think that you're absolutely right. I see more and more people who are gravitating towards this message, not just of sustainability, but of more of a human-centric approach to things.
And one must never forget that ultimately, if one were to be biblical about this, one of the commandments does state, thou shalt not kill.
Right.
It's a very nice and simple commandment. It doesn't define, it doesn't say, thou shalt not kill thy brethren. It says, thou shalt not kill.
Right.
And by that, I think it implies so beautifully the meaning of nonviolence. So that's how we began as a vegan company way back in 1998. So our sustainability works on two fronts. One is from the corporate viewpoint, where we look at products, we look at shipping, we look at the mechanics of what we do. Everything then goes back to the fact that it needs to be environmentally friendly, ecological. It needs to give back to mankind in whatever way possible. So we deal with nutrition, we deal with healthcare. We work on everything that in one way or the other contributes ecologically. But at the same time, we also look towards building people up, raising people up. So building, creating, and empowering entrepreneurs is one of our fundamental strategies.
I think that's very interesting. I think that it's a very big shift in corporate mindset from what we experienced probably for, I would have to say, 3 decades or more. So I think it's very interesting. Could you explain a little bit in practical terms how you apply this to your business sort of on a day-to-day basis?
Well, let's begin with the issue about, whether we are value-driven or profit-driven, for example, from the corporate viewpoint. So in terms of when we began way back, we focused on making a positive impact in the life of our people. Now, this meant not just the communities that we live in, but also to the family, the people who work with us. So this is about empowering them and working on these 3 pillars of sustainability. One is empowering people, both our own staff, the people within the network of people that we deal with, from vendors to networkers, etc., all the way down to transforming communities, the people at large, and then going to the bigger picture of safeguarding the environment. So the social impact of business is easier to identify, but difficult to measure. This much is something we have learned. However, understanding the effect a company has on society and the environment is vital.
Right.
This is something we have learned to establish and work upon, and that's become one of our guidelines. One, we are a meat-free organization. 2, we ban the use of single-use plastic in every one of our offices around the world, in all the 42 offices, in all our events, in the stadiums that we function and run with. So we have stadium events that go up to about 20,000 people.
Wow.
Before the pandemic, that is.
Right.
So those events were all basically without the use of plastic. Our operational headquarters here in Malaysia is a green certified building.
Wow.
It functions on uniquely, water being one of the rarest resources, and I think arguably going to be one of our most important resources moving forward. Our building has got what we call an air to water. It is a reverse dehumidifier.
Oh, really?
So it sucks because our humidity here is very high in Malaysia.
Yeah.
We're a tropical country. So we have, a device that basically sucks the moisture out of the air and fills up a tank, a 500-gallon tank right on top of the roof that functions as for all our, water users in the office. Now, a university, up-and-coming university campus will be structured on that same framework. Solar panels, free off the water grid, and essentially It is built in a fashion that not just the university students, but everyone who comes into this campus. It'll be a campus that is emission free. So people will be biking all over the place as opposed to having any carbon fossil driven fewer vehicles, only electric vehicles and bicycles. We have aligned ourselves with the UN SDGs that focus on gender equality, access to education, reducing inequalities, and climate action. These are the fundamental SDGs that we have aligned ourselves to. So those are the practical steps. I tell you what the biggest challenge has always been for me. I mean, these are the things that we sat down and identified in committees and with us trying to be professional about things and putting it into SOPs and rules and regulations. But the biggest and hardest thing is that we are ultimately reprogramming people.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
And that is the biggest challenge. It's about educating people. We can create policies and put in enforcement measures, till every individual understands it. But they are part of a larger ecosystem and they need to understand the impact they have on others. And it's difficult to bring about real change until and unless they actually buy it. They buy into it.
That's very true, yeah.
So this has been our real challenge because we're talking about a generation that grew up throwing things out of the window. And, a generation that grew up taking the planet for granted.
Right.
On a positive note, though, the millennials, the centennials, the Gen Zs, they show a great deal of promise because they are far more tuned on, switched on, to the concept. And we find a lot of support and understanding in the younger generations.
Right.
But it's still, a struggle to get this passed to the great majority. It's about trying to there's a need for harmony. And that's something they need to come to terms with. Although this is more easily understood in the first world countries. I mean, you can see this in Scandinavia, in parts of Europe,
right.
Australia, New Zealand, and the likes. It's a harder sell because we are in the third world. A great majority of our business and our officers are in the third world. And in the third world, in all honesty, Jane, between you and me, the tougher or the harder point is to get it across to them that this is fundamentally something that will save their future generations. Right. Because the thing that is basically right in front of them that is occupying their mind is survival.
Yes, that's very true.
It's basically survival. So it's very hard to talk to a starving man about, sustainability. Yeah. But it's something that we have endeavored to do. And I think I have been pleasantly surprised with some of the results because we have offices in the Middle East, in Africa, in Central Asia, and the response from some of these places has been amazing. It's been a harder sell, clearly, and people tend to be more blunt, and more hard-nosed about these concepts. When you talk sustainability, they kind of look back and say, hey, okay, this is airy-fairy stuff,
Right.
But we have tried to make the whole concept pragmatic and make them realize that we can do this, or we can put food on the table, at the same time ensure there's a roof on their heads for your kids and their kids, and ensure that the planet is still around.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the fact that you take a pragmatic approach is important because too often things are put in, like you say, airy-fairy terms, and then it doesn't resonate with most people. It sounds good until the rubber hits the road, so to speak, and then it's not practical, so therefore people start to sort of fall off the wagon. When you look at this and trying to get people, as you say, to buy in and to really wholly embrace these concepts, and we're talking about two things, probably two parts of the same equation, one of which is sustainability and one of which is this human-centric side of things. Do you find that in general people are able to understand or feel more akin to the human side of things, the need for more human values, or do you feel that they are more able to relate to the sustainability side of things?
I think it's a combination of the two. It's very
Okay.
difficult to divide it per se, but clearly it starts off with them recognizing that. I think it begins with us breaking the divisions that hold us, that divide us. All right. So we start off as a company that does not recognize these divisions, such as class, caste, color, culture, country. All of these things mean very little or nothing at all to us. We begin by saying the family of man. We refer to our company not as group of companies, we say QI family. We
Right.
refer to everyone out there as brothers and sisters. We say to each other that, hey, maybe governments have drawn lines in the sand and we have passports that supposedly divide us and define us. But let us not do that here. The only thing that counts here is, in essence, the only things that we accept is you are a brother or a sister, you are a mother or a father, you are a child, you are a daughter or a son. These are the things that are universal to us
Right.
all.
Right.
And that we accept. Any other divisions we don't accept. Now, once we accept that, then it's easy for us to be able to draw upon the fact that, hey, our goals are common. We all want the same things. And that has proven to be something that has helped us reach out to them. Part of the thing that I think that has really helped is the Rhythm Foundation. It's a foundation that was started and developed virtually around the same time the company began. And it is driven, my wife, Uma, is the chairperson. And it spearheads projects all around the world on empowering people and transforming communities. It works with NGOs and other grassroots organizations in developing countries. And in the last decade or so, the foundation has implemented over 50 projects in more than 10 countries that has helped 50,000 people in underserved communities.
Wow.
Allowing them to take charge of their life, raising themselves, simply just doing better. Now, it focuses on three major areas: gender equality, a fundamental issue here in the third world, providing access to quality education, and sustainable community development. So this is something that we have also ensured that the staff in the company participate in. And different levels, they all have to do CSR or community-related work at some level or the other. It is part of their performance and appraisal.
Right.
And they do it willingly.
Wow. That's great.
That too, is amazing.
I think you set that example. And as they say, leadership starts from the top down. I'm just wondering, from your point of view, as you look at the global sort of landscape, right, of corporations, do you feel that going forward we need a different kind of leadership in order to bring about a lot of the ideals that you've been championing within your company?
Now that's a can of worms.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't have to open
box.
it. We don't have to open that can or box
No,
if you don't want.
I'm quite willing to discuss that.
Okay.
It's a fact that we have, in a way, wavered. We have left the path of the great leaders we have had in the early part of the 20th century, such as the Mahatma Gandhis and Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King. People who addressed the globe as being one. John F. Kennedy, in his inauguration speech as a president of the United States, addressed the entire planet, from the fisherman in Cambodia to, the farmer in Ecuador. In his address, he was talking to the world, and the world felt a part of him. This was the magic that the leadership of that time brought into play. For example, did more for the third world than all the amount of money that has been spent on every other project since.
Really?
All right.
That's so interesting.
The Peace Corps. We still here in the third world. I still remember teachers coming in, basically young kids coming out of the States wanting to teach in the various schools in the rural areas, and they left such a incredible impact, you know, and they left such an incredible impact that I think that was one of the most wonderful endeavors. One of the things that inspired me to do our own concept of the Peace Corps, which is to send out our staff, our employees out there to work in the communities,
Wow.
which has worked so well.
That's really, it's really impressive that you were so inspired by that and that you have been able to successfully replicate that within your own organization. We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
It simply worked. I mean, the thing about Gandhi and, say, Mother Teresa, for that matter, or Martin Luther King, is they were not conquerors or rulers. You know, they were not dogmatic. They were not pursuing personal goals. They fundamentally addressed things that were universal, such as love and peace and harmony, family values, and all of the rest. That's what made them into who they are. And I think from there to where we are talking about making each nation great by itself is a long, long jump.
Yeah.
We seem to have missed the plot somehow.
Very well said.
And it's a fact. I mean, ultimately, we are more alike than we are different. And we should be focusing on that, our similarities, not our differences. You know, building walls is not the answer. Building walls is not going to keep out the enemy, as the Chinese can tell you.
Right.
The Great Wall of China evidently failed.
Yeah.
So we haven't learned how to build bridges. The Berlin Wall didn't help either. So I think as a world, we need to come together. As a people, we need to come together. And that's what has always worked, invariably, throughout history. So this concept of sustainability should include at some point simply the fact that we need to have a sustainable world, a sustainable, relation, harmony and peace across the world, working with each other. We have much more to offer that way.
It's a message that certainly is very timely, and it makes me think back to, I suppose it was the 60s, when there was this concept of championing peace, right? The peace movement and so forth. So I wonder if we're not going to see somewhat of a circling back to that concept. What's your take?
You see, the question I have to ask is, what was so wrong with it? That was in probably one of the most liberating moments in human history. The transition between the 60s and 70s, where this, from the Beatles all the way across to the Woodstock and all of that, has had an impact all across the world.
Right.
It was there in the music, it is there in the literature, it's there in the art. And because of that, we came together. And if we look at it, you see, that's exactly the area that worked the best. Music, for example, you didn't need to understand English to fall in love with the Beatles.
Right.
So I think it is something that we have, when we started, this inward movement of making ourselves great at the expense of the world, everything else started to fall apart. There's a great book called All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm not sure you've heard of it. Yeah. So
I've read that. Yeah.
And it's brilliant in how it encapsulates that moment where Christmas, basically brought together two enemies who were essentially hostile to each other.
Right. Yeah.
So I think what has captured the world has always been love, not war. And we built this company based on that concept. So, we drop all the divisions of mankind when we come through the door. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi did. You see, the beauty about Gandhi is he wasn't a general. He wasn't a president or a prime minister. He didn't belong to any single political party. And he didn't belong to any single political party, but he moved 300 million people.
Wow. Incredible,
And
right?
when he passed away, 1 million people came for his funeral.
Wow.
And they came, basically, they came on trains, they came on bullock carts, they came basically walking for miles. So he was able to move across the world with his message. So I'm saying that has always been my primary motivation, to find a way that I can bring people together. And I think that's the most sustainable thing you can do.
Yeah, I would agree completely with that. I think it's a very interesting interpretation of sustainability as a much more comprehensive goal. Now, in the course of your journey in building this company and building your foundation, what would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned?
Well, if at all I was to pinpoint one single thing, it's that, first of all, I had goals when I began. I set goals, I set targets, and I wanted to achieve them. And I realized that all of these goals kept evolving as I evolved. So change is the only real reality. So if I'm prepared to adapt, adjust, and accommodate, that's the 3 A's that I live by: adapt, adjust, and accommodate. Then every challenge that I meet, every whatever hostility, compromise, everything that I have to deal with on the way, I get to deal with. So the thing I've learned to do is to adapt and adjust and accommodate.
Yeah, I think that that's such an important concept and way of framing all the different things that happen. That ability to be flexible, that ability, as you're saying, to adapt, to accommodate, as opposed to seeing everything as sort of a roadblock, right? Or as an insurmountable obstacle.
Exactly. Gandhi says it well when he says, be the change you want to see in the world. And that has been my theory, my platform upon which all of my strategies have evolved. So you're not going to be able to take very much with you when you go, if at all. But, it's basically the legacy that you leave behind that's really important.
Absolutely.
And that's what we are focused on.
Just one last question, and that is,
yes.
What's next? You've achieved so much. You've achieved 3 lifetimes worth in 1 lifetime. What's the next thing? What do you have your eye on?
The next thing is the next generation.
Okay.
So our legacy project has been to build a university, which we have been doing the last few years, actually, the last 10 years. And right now we are working on the campus and everything else. The message is to reach out to the younger generation, to basically not just give them an education, but to give them essentially an introduction, a preparation for the world they're going to be stepping into. So we have kind of veered away from the traditional approach of a university and tried to build an environment whereby they come out with that ability to adjust, adapt, and accommodate. Traditional universities have a problem because the concept is something that comes out of the 19th century. The buildings are coming out of the 19th century. The teachers are all born out of the 20th century, trying to create students for the 21st century. So it's totally out of whack.
Right.
We have tried to do something different in that regard. So at our university, we talk about sustainability. We talk about being vegetarian. We talk about giving back to communities, giving back to society. We talk about being able to live in this world and not necessarily leave in our wake, a trail of disaster, but rather leave in our wake a better world altogether for the rest of humanity.
I think that's really such an important goal for people to have. I think that getting, to see that entire picture of the world and to really understand that we're all in it together. And ultimately, we need to support each other and work together, as opposed to the divisiveness that we've seen over the years that has not really benefited too many.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, Vijay, thank you so much for sharing these insights. I think the work you're doing is very impressive. How can people connect with you? I think a lot of people would probably want to learn more about what you're doing with your Rhythm Foundation and some of the other projects, the university and so forth. How can people get in touch or in some way support you?
I have blogs, I have social media.
Okay.
And all of that. But if you just Google my name, I think you're going to find it anyhow.
Okay. Yes, I'm sure we will. What you're doing is just so incredible. And I wish you tremendous success with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've learned a tremendous amount from you. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of industry information being dumped onto your desk or into your inbox, then take a look at the current situation, where supply chain execs get only the news they really need, summarized so that they can reclaim their time and their inboxes. You can learn more at thecurrentsituation.net. That's thecurrentsituation.net. Before you go, don't forget to check the Seat at the Table's website. You'll find all of the previous podcast episodes, other useful information, as well as how to contact us. You can find it at seatpodcast.net or in the show notes. That's all for now. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode.